Great.
Brian Swartz, welcome to the Art.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So, do you know one of my other guests on the Art pretty well?
How recent?
Just about a few minutes ago.
I think maybe is it male or female?
Female.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that I know. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Laura House.
Oh, yeah, I know Lower House.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about your art.
Okay.
And so I first got to know you. I saw you online. I saw you in the Twitterverse. And it was Oingo Boingo Dance Party.
Oh, okay.
And I had this moment of like, wait a second, is this a member of the Oingo Boingo band? And then I read up on Oingo Boingo Dance Party, and this is a hybrid.
Yeah. Well, do you want to? Should I go through the entire history of what I understand? I started with this band. Johnny Vatos, the drummer. Excuse me. Johnny Vatos, the drummer from Oingo Boingo, when Danny Elfman was doing it. And before, I think. Anyway, Johnny Vatos in 2005 decided to start the band up again. The band broke up in '95. Danny Elfman broke up the band, and then Johnny wanted to start it up and do Halloween shows. So we were doing just a couple of one or two shows around Halloween for the first few years, around 2005. And I just happened to be the guy that he was heavily collaborating with to start that is actually a film composer now named Bear McCreary. And Bear, he's done like the Cloverfield movies,
Okay.
and several other. He did the Battlestar Galactica, the new Battlestar Galactica stuff. Great TV and film composer. Anyway, and Bear was a huge Oingo Boingo fan, as is his brother Brendan, and Bear was doing all of the arranging so that we could perform this, the Oingo Boingo music again. And Bear's wife is a singer named Rhea Yarbrough, who I was working with her band, playing trumpet in her band before all of this came about. So when Johnny Vatos needed a trumpet player, because the original trumpet player doesn't even play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He just dropped out. Dropped out of the business after Oingo Boingo fell apart. So anyway, Rhea recommended me, and I've been doing it ever since. So so there's several original members of the band: Johnny Vatos, Steve Bartek, the guitar player, Sam Phipps, one of the original sax players, John Avila, the bass player, does it a lot, Carl Graves, one of the keyboard players, occasionally Doug. He's going to be so mad that I can't remember. Anyway,
I always think I should know.
They call him Doug
this.
Legacy,
Yes,
but he's got a different last name. But that's anyway. Doug plays sometimes. Anyway, and then we filled in from there. Guitar players, or Mike the Spike plays guitar now, and we've had trombone players in the past that have done it, but right now it's just me and the sax in the horn section. So me and Sam Phipps. So it's a lot of fun, and the band has gotten more active in the last 4 or 5 years. Johnny's trying to get to the point where we're playing year round. At first it was just a couple of shows around Halloween. Then it started to become like several gigs in October, and now it's for some reason it's all around Cinco de Mayo. Also, we did a whole tour in May last year, and we're going to do another one in May this year, and so it's like October and May, and then some things here and there in between. We're doing a show December 30th, actually, at the Canyon Club in Santa Clarita.
Okay.
So that'll be fun. And then we don't have anything for a little while, but it always comes in here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much fun to play that music. It's such high energy stuff, and even though Danny doesn't do it, Brendan McKeon, who is the lead singer, just absolutely kills it and just puts everything into singing that stuff. So it's always fun to play that stuff. And it's like a classic horn section band. You know, a rock horn section band. So like I take a lot of pride in being, you know, like the trumpet player in a classic horn section band like that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. And you said are those songs fun to play? Because they sure seem like they would be.
It's a lot of fun. In fact, I usually lose 5 to 10 pounds when we do a tour because there's so much energy. I'm really kidding. It doesn't happen. I think I gain weight when we tour because of the green rooms. But like, but yeah, I'm putting out a lot of energy on stage. You know, it's weirdly danceable. You know, it's punk rock, a lot of it, but I mean, some of it is just like 80s danceable, and that's when I went to high school, and so like I can get into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, what's the crowd like?
Older than me.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No, they're a lot of fun. It's actually it's getting to be more mixed with young people because I think the farther that we go along, the more that people realize Oingo Boingo's place in rock history, and how influential they were, because they were a punk band. You know, it was actually kind of a performance art band that came out of this thing called the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, and then they shortened it to Oingo Boingo, and so like. They came out of this performance art thing, and then punk rock happened, and so they were taking punk rock, they were taking ska aspects, and mixing them all together with like Raymond Scott's music, which was like the stuff from Bugs Bunny cartoons, you know. So so they were mixing all of these orchestral elements to their music, but doing it with rock instrumentation. So it's really, if you sit and listen to any of the songs, they're really well put together and really well orchestrated.
They are composed and arranged.
Yeah, and Danny Elfman had a lot of vision for being able to do that, you know, and still does for movie soundtracks, obviously. So it was, you know, I think from what I understand, he just had really clear ideas of what he wanted out of every song. So, how he wanted things to sound and how things fit together, and so we end up doing everything we can to kind of perform everything as it was originally done. Yeah, it's just really high energy.
So you're true to the original sound and the original arrangements, but you're playing the upbeat. So the dance party part is that it's the upbeat tunes.
Well,
and
you know,
bring in some new stuff.
Well, the dance party part is that we can't just call it Oingo Boingo because Danny owns that.
Gotcha.
So, in fact, they're right in the middle of rebranding into just being called Oingo Boingo former members.
Okay.
Because the dance party thing kind of made it sound to people like when they were trying to book it in clubs or places, they were like, oh, is it a DJ or is it, you know, what is the dance party? So they're just in the middle of changing it to just Oingo Boingo former members because it's like direct to the point. Boom. Okay. So I think in 2019, that's what the band's going to be called now. So we're going to be at the Whiskey in May too.
Wow.
I love playing at the Whiskey. That's always fun. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of, there's like 6 or 7 dates in May that we're doing. Anyway, but yeah, so that's a lot of fun to play that stuff, and it's completely different from what I do in the jazz world. Right. So I always wanted to be one of those people, one of those musicians where they went, oh, you do that? I didn't know you did that. Where musicians said that.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
Where they, not just, you know, people that I meet or, you know, people in the business, you know, like I meet a lot of Laura's friends and the first thing she says is, he's an Oingo Boingo, you know. And
because that's what they're going to recognize.
yeah, and they go, "Shut up."
Shut up.
Yeah, that's how they do it. Shut up. And so, but nobody in the jazz world knows who that is.
Gotcha. So you have two different worlds, and you like that element of surprise. You like that you have diversity in your talent, your repertoire, where you can say, "No, I do this, and I do this," and like, really, you're over there doing that?
Yeah, I kind of like that. And I've said a lot of times that these different bands that you end up playing, if you have long enough associations with them, they end up being little families.
Yeah.
They have their dramas that families do. They have you go through whatever personal things that families go through, bands go through that too. So I don't know, it's just interesting that I have these separate families, like John Beasley's Monkestra is one family, and then Oingo Boingo is one family. My bands, each one of I have like 2 or 3 different bands that I'll lead, and each one of those is like a little family of people. So, and I, in the last year, I've been playing with a saxophone player named Azar Lawrence, who is he's an amazing saxophone player, and he sounds a lot like John Coltrane. A lot of people say that he sounds like John, and he is one of the people that, when John Coltrane passed away, his piano player McCoy Tyner hired Azar to play with his band. So it was kind of like, so Azar is kind of like that bridge between John Coltrane and the next generation of saxophone players. And I mean, not that he's the only one, but he's one of them. But so being able to play with Azar is really great, because again, that's a whole other totally different style of music. It's not the Monkestra is like jazz big band music.
Yes.
And even though the Monkestra is not necessarily, doesn't have a traditional sound of a jazz big band, not like like probably what most people think of when they think of big band is like Glenn Miller or Benny Goodman or stuff like that. The Monkestra, the way that John Beasley conceived of it was taking Thelonious Monk's music and performing it with a larger group, and
kind of surrounding it maybe with more instruments, more
instrumentation. Well, I mean, you're taking the big band structure and format, which is 4 or 5 trumpets, 4 trombones, 5 saxophones, and then piano, bass, drums, and which traditionally Monk's music was played by smaller groups. So, but John took that even a step further than that, was making a big band sound more modern, taking a lot more modern, like funk and rock and rap aspects, and marrying it to jazz and Thelonious Monk. So, so that's what's made that different, hip hop aspects also, So like, yeah, all you got to do is ask me about me, and I'll just
get you started, and you just go.
Yeah.
I told you earlier that I was listening to a tune by the Monkestra, Round Midnight, that they were doing, and I put it on at let me see how this sounds, and then I was lost. Like 2 minutes in, my mind was 1,000 miles away. I was feeling good. I was just going about, and then I realized, was intentionally listening to this song, and I'm like, that's good music for me. Like, that's what's beautiful. It's like I was enjoying myself with that music playing, and wasn't just noticing the music, but was getting the feeling from it.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a lot of that is the magic of John Beasley. Also, that's his stamp on that. That he really can take a listener really far into a different realm than they're used to hearing things. So, and he can do it almost instantly.
Mm-hmm.
The first time that I played with John, it was like, I think in the late 90s. I had him, a friend of mine, I had a quintet that I was leading, which is, a 5-piece band, leading with a saxophone player who's my best friend named Keith Fidmont. And we were trying, having different guest piano players play with us. And one of them that we had was John Beasley. And the first time that he played with me, he hadn't seen any of the music. I think I might have sent it to him, but we hadn't played together at all. But my friend was like, "Don't worry about it. He's not going to have any problem with the music that we're playing." So he came into the gig, and I maybe talked it down with him before we started playing, and then got up on the stage and I counted off the first tune, and he didn't play. He just sat and listened. Usually a piano player, when they do what we call comping, mm-hmm. which is playing the chords and the structure behind the melody, because in instrumental music, if there's nobody singing, the melody is going to be carried by the horns. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be, the bass is going to be playing its structure, the drums are going to be playing its structure, and the piano is going to be playing the chords in support of all of that. So, when we started playing, all of those other things were going on, but there was no piano. Ah. And I after we played the melody, he still hadn't played, and I think I started into a solo, and he still wasn't playing. And I thought, oh man, he hates this. He's hating this. He just doesn't want to hear this. He doesn't want to play this. So I'm thinking, oh man, what did I do? What did I do? And I took a solo, and then the saxophone player took a solo, and then John Beasley took a solo. And I walked over to the side of the stage, and I said, Keith, why didn't Beasley play? Does he think this sucks or something? And he goes, no, he just wanted to hear what it was about.
He wanted to hear it all the way through first.
He wanted to hear what it was about before he came in and made a statement musically to accompany it.
Yeah.
So and from that point on, he just, like I said, he just put his stamp on everything. He just he's a master of space, of how to use space. And I think he learned that really young. Both of his parents were music educators, so I think he learned about space really young. So he really is about finding what's right. Where is the place that he actually is supposed to be? Not just here, I'm going to fill the space. So,
right. And not, hey, here, look at me. He didn't feel compelled to jump in and prove anything.
Right.
He was listening and receiving first.
Right.
And then creating from there.
Right.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I think a lot of people in different arenas could learn from that.
Oh. I was just on Twitter reading how much is being contributed on Twitter. So, anyway, we won't go into that. I could go down the political darkness, but let's not.
Well, you can talk about whatever you would like to talk about. I had said from the beginning I was going to start with this joke about something you guys put on Twitter, and I'm just going to save that. I'm going to save it for the
now.
Okay, whatever. We'll do it now. Well, what was funny is just think of the connection between you and Laura and this is partly in her comedy, but I most recently saw you posted a picture of a caulking gun and said, does this count as a dick pic? Stop looking at my, I thought you said stop looking at my cock, but it actually, that's just how I remembered. I think you wrote something different from that.
I wrote hashtag stop taking pictures of my cock.
There you go.
That's what it was.
C-A-U-L-K. And then Laura, here's the thing. Laura retweets with comment, dad jokes. And I'm just laughing to myself like, what kind of dad do you have? Like, I mean, my dad was, filthy drunk, but did not ever talk about, stop taking pictures of my cock.
No. Well, my kids are older now. I guess maybe when your kids get older, my kids are 19 and 20 now. So when your kids get older, maybe you'll change about it.
So those are, that's true. That's true. I thought it was hilarious. It made me laugh. It made
wordplay. It's just very dad joke to like. This sounds like this other word. Tee.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But no, you're right. It's pretty dirty dad joke.
Yeah. Well.
I didn't think it through.
Anyway.
Listen to Mouth Punch comedy album by Laura House.
Yeah. Mouth Punch. Right. Awesome stuff.
There's some dad comedy in there.
Oh no.
Oh, called out.
I just thought that was hilarious. They were like, and the way you guys were having fun with each other, I thought it was really funny. But then it was a few minutes later when that came to me. I'm like, what does she mean, dad jokes? But what you mean is the word play, and that you can make a word play like that, and it's okay.
Yeah. Well, my dad used to tell me jokes like that, but when nobody else was around, it was just like a little joke between us. Okay, yeah. See, this is funny, but don't tell your mom I told you that joke. Or I can remember my dad passed away like 25 years ago, so I can remember one time in his life he was telling me a story about having a bad day at work, and he goes, and I flew the eagle at this guy, and I said, what do you mean? And he goes. Like he held it down, like by his leg, like this is what I did. I flipped him off, and I'm like, whoa, my dad flipped somebody. I couldn't even imagine him doing, and it looked weird to see him do it.
Yeah. Shoot a bird.
Yeah.
Flew the eagle.
Yeah. It was like, whoa. Yeah, he couldn't even say. I stuck my middle finger up and. Anyway, so but he was a really funny guy, and he said a lot. He would say tons of funny things. I think I was just remembering a joke the other day about that somebody, I don't know where it all came about. I was playing at Perch and talking with the guys in my band, and I was saying, oh, that reminds me of that old joke about the guy saying, hey, if you want to look like you have a big member, put a potato in your pants. And so this guy's like, yeah, great. I'm going to try that. And then later on, the guy sees him and he goes, no, I meant in the front of your pants. See, these are dad jokes, right?
Why don't you just play the trumpet?
Oh. And leave the jokes to the comic. Sometimes for me, it's just funny that someone says something like that.
Right.
Like, it's not that funny of a joke, but you just laugh because you're like, what? What? No.
Anyway.
You laugh. So did your dad see and hear you play trumpet?
Yeah, we actually got to play together a little bit. He was a trumpet player also, and he played in the Air Force band for for the Air Force for 30 years. So I was watching the Bush funerals coverage the last couple of days, and enjoying it for the pageantry of and the military band music and the honor guard handling everything. Regardless of my opinion of George Bush or anybody involved, but. So that's always something very poignant for me. It's just to see that kind of that's a lot. It's just I don't even know the word for it. I guess pageantry is all I can come up with.
And the military members are going to fulfill their service duty regardless of who's in office.
Oh, and it's a great source of pride, for the honor guard or for that band that plays. I couldn't tell. Maybe my mom could tell me how many, because my mom is still around. I wonder if she could tell me how many presidents my dad might have played for. I don't know. He probably could have told me while he was alive. But you know, it's a source. It's a real source of pride. And so I grew up listening to all of that music. But we did get to play together a little bit. You know, like we had about just a few years where he was out of the Air Force, where he was retired from the Air Force, and I was in college, and I was living at home when I started college, and we played some local theater productions. We played The Music Man or something like that together, and then we were playing a couple of local big bands that probably weren't very good, but I got to play with my dad and get a sense of how well he played, you know, and his sound. So
nice.
Yeah.
So he was a musician. He was a military member. So were you always a musician? Were you always playing or involved in music?
My first memories of playing the trumpet were from preschool.
Wow.
I didn't. I think I recited "Little Boy Blue, Come Blow Your Horn," and at the end they had given me a trumpet. I think it's the trumpet that I have at home, and I just went, you know, made some kind of trumpet noise at the end of saying that.
Well, you had to know something, because I don't know much, but I know enough to know that you can't really make a sound come out of a horn if you don't know what you're really doing in that mouthpiece, which is not just blowing.
There may have been some precursory instruction, you know, before I did that. But I didn't really start playing until I was in, I think, 5th grade. And even then, I played a half a year and quit.
Ah.
And then I think in 6th grade, I started up again.
Okay.
Because somebody in the band, one of my friends that was in the band was like, "Hey, they don't have any trumpet players. Brian plays trumpet. Oh, I played last year, but I hated it, so I don't want to do it. Oh, but we have a new band teacher this year. Oh, okay. I'll do it." And then we moved. Anyway, moving is a big part of being a military child.
Yep.
So.
Did you move a lot?
Well, I think by the time I was around, because I'm the youngest of 4, so I think by the time I was around, there was less moving.
Okay.
But still, you know, I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, and then within about, I think, 6 months of me being born, we moved to Germany, and then we were there for a year or two, and then Florida for a year or so, and then ended up in Nebraska by the time I was 4, I think.
Okay.
So, and then we were in Nebraska for my grade school years, and then Northern California for middle school and high school.
Okay.
And then after a couple of years of high school, I moved to LA. I've been here since then. So.
Oh wow.
So yeah, So I've been here longer than anywhere that I don't know what else to call home, I guess.
Yeah, I know the feeling. A lot of us transplants to California, after you've been here for a couple of decades, you're like, well, I don't know anything else. This is home. Yeah.
Well, I know that I chose to be here. You know, I know that I don't want to live somewhere where I would have to shovel snow or where it's terribly cold. I learned that from being in Nebraska, that I don't have to be there.
It's a choice.
Plus, you know, for what I do, there's not many places where I could do that on the level that I have the opportunity here.
Right.
Yeah. Let's put it that way.
And that's what we talk about here at the Art, because when just generally in the public someone talks about musicians or say, oh, a trumpet player. Like, well, where and how and for whom do you play the trumpet? And you have all of these arenas. You have your own bands, you have 2 other bands that you play with, and then whatever else you do. So how did that happen, and how have you made that for yourself here in Los Angeles?
Well, I've been very lucky, very fortunate to, but I've worked it's a lot of hard work too. I mean, with any amount of luck, there's a lot of work behind it. So, but I think you make choices about. We all make conscious choices about what we do and do not want to do. And I think I had a friend who had a list in his garage. It had a picture of Daffy Duck, and it said, "This is a list of people that can just kiss my ass." And so I thought, oh, that's so great. Now I don't have to keep it in my head of people that can kiss my ass. And it's also, and then I don't have to even tell them. I can just keep it on a list.
Yep.
And put it down, and it's done, and then boom. Gradually through my life, I've not necessarily kept a list of people that can kiss my ass, but like more of like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That I don't think I want to do. And so when people ask me to do some things, I will either graciously say, I'm not available, or I will say, I'm semi-retired from that.
And they get the hint.
And they go, oh, okay. And then, which they don't always, I try not to do that too much anymore, because it sort of also lays a judgment on something, like people feel like you're judging what they're doing.
If you don't want to play it, that you don't like it or you look down upon it.
Yeah. But there's let's put it this way. I love playing salsa music. It's incredibly intense music, but it's also incredibly painful to play on the trumpet. It takes a lot of physical stamina and energy, and generally, if you're going to play that music well, you have to play that music all the time, like constantly. And actually, to play any music, you have to. There's a certain amount of constant work. I mean, ask her. She's hearing me. She made a joke to me last week about how was it when we were talking about coming here that you said that every day I don't get up and go, hey, where are you from? Hey, where are you from? Hey, where are you from?
Practices for an hour every day, and I'm like, I don't just stand in the living room doing who's from out of town.
When you don't practice comedy the same way you practice music. Yeah.
That's crazy, right? That's in the living room.
And gradually speeding them up. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, because
right.
When you. But there's a certain amount, especially with the trumpet. I don't think every instrument is this way, but brass instruments generally are. You basically have to. You're starting over every day almost, and so you have to. There's a warm up that has to happen every day, so there's a. And in fact, this year I'm doing pretty good, huh? This year I really dedicated I told myself this year I think it was on the 2nd of January, I said, you know what, I'm going to play every day this year, because I took the first off because I did a New Year's gig, and I'm like, oh man, I need to rest my chops, and then on the 2nd I went, why did I need to do that? I think I'm okay, with playing every day. And so I was sick in February and I missed a day. And then I was even sick last month and I didn't miss. Really so I've played every day this year, and I don't know why I never had that thought of I'm going to play every day. I've always had this thought of, you know what? Just take a day off, man. Just take a day off and rest. Take 2 days off. Okay, take 2 days. Well, I didn't mean to take 2 days off, but I will. Oh, it's all right. And then there's a recovery. You're like, oh man, now I feel like I took 2 days off. But so now there's less recovery.
Okay.
Every day, and actually it feels like I'm making progress. Better.
You feel better when you perform?
Even that's an interesting question, because I guess I could say I'm feeling more consistent, but there's a certain thing that happens when you perform anyway. When the light's on, you go. Mm-hmm. When the light's green, you go. And so when you're on stage, that's not the point where you're thinking about technique. You're not, that's where you're playing, So I don't necessarily feel different in that way, because somehow I always wanted to make that performance happen, and but having said that, you always, I've been playing trumpet for like 40 years now, so like you always want to get more consistent. You always want to get better, and so. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody else.
Okay.
You'd have to ask somebody that I play with. Has he gotten better this year?
I see.
Is he better on stage? They probably.
And I guess my question was really, does it feel better? Do you, when you perform? But it sounds like what you said, and I've learned this from an artist, that you practice and you rehearse to set the intention and work on your craft and think about how it's going to go, and then you get it into muscle memory, and then when you're performing, it's a performance. It has to already be there. Yeah,
you can't be depending on conscious thought.
Okay.
When you're performing, playing the trumpet, you certainly can.
Wow.
You have to be doing that conscious thought in practice. And that has to be an important part of practice. Like there's for me, there's warm up, there's very conscious, working. I heard a really great quote from a trumpet player here in town named Dan Rosenboom, and I love it. Playing, you have to think of practicing as concentric circles. In the center is stuff that we can do any day, all day long, no problem, never going to miss it. The one right outside of that is where we can do it pretty well. Every once in a while, we're going to miss it. The one outside of that is stuff that's more difficult. And then the one outside of that is stuff that's more difficult. The one outside of that, stuff we can't do yet.
Got it.
And as you practice, everything that you do, those circles start to close in. The ones on the outside start to close in. The thing that you can't do at all starts to close into that circle of I can almost do that, or I can do that pretty well, down to the point where I can do that anytime. So,
and it becomes part of that inner circle.
So you have to do that, yeah. So you have to do that conscious practicing of stuff that challenges the limits of your ability. And within that, the things that are right in that center circle are getting worked out too, So that when you go to perform, there's not that anxiety of I'm gonna be. You've got to play in that zone that you can do.
Got it.
Although with jazz, they don't mind if you get out to that edge of stuff that you just about can't do or you can't do yet. That's kind of where experimental jazz is, like that, way outside on that edge of I'm not sure if I can do that or not. The other night, I had a really weird experience when I was playing at Perch. I was going for some things, and a sound came out, a series of notes came out of my instrument that I wasn't expecting, and my conscious thought was, oh, that's a horrible mistake. That was my instant thought was, oh, whoa, that was...
What did I just do?
And my guitar player went, whoa! Like, it was so cool to him.
Ah.
But to me, it was like, ugh, So like something that's really to me, but so cool to him at the same time, is that zone where you're not, where you're thinking, I'm not making this. I'm not sure if I can do this or not. So again, the thing is though, is you don't want to be so. You've got to get out of that judgmental mind when you're creating, when you're improvising. So, so that you're not, again, that was my reaction. And again, I try to limit those reactions to just like, okay, yeah, even though I'm talking about it now for a minute, that reaction happened for like a second.
Yeah, because you've got to move on and keep
Oh
playing.
yeah, I've got to do something. I got to keep playing. I can't. That was terrible. Okay, that's it for tonight, folks. Thank you. I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. I think I'm on top of a building. Here I go.
But it sounds like it went pretty well.
I saw his last show.
right before he flew. Oh man! So you are an arranger and a composer as well, and is that for the couple of bands that you run, or do you arrange and compose for any of the other bands?
I've been lucky in some ways that there have been. John Beasley put one of my arrangements on one of the Monkestra albums, so that was really nice. And then I've done arranging for other things, like I arranged the horns on the Dixie Chicks album from 2006 or 7, I guess.
Nice.
I can't remember what year it was now. Maybe 5. This is the one that won Record of the Year and 5 Grammys, I think. So I'll arrange things like that. I write. Generally, when I write original music, it's going to be for my groups. So for my quartet that I play with at Perch every Tuesday from 7 to 10 downtown LA, I'll write original things, or I will arrange jazz standards, which are like songs from the Great American Songbook, which is all music from like the musicals and stuff like that.
Yes.
But so I'll do. I'll make little slick arrangements of songs for that, or but and then I write the horn parts out for the boingo things because they don't have that music. Nobody wrote it out, or they just don't have it. I think they used to have it memorized, I think, but there's so much material. Whenever Johnny wants to do another song, oh hey, let's do these songs from this album, I'll write out the horn parts. So that's kind of considered arranging, but it's more like just like transcribing what they did, because you want that to sound as much like the original thing as possible. Arranging kind of implies that you're going to put your own stamp on it also.
Oh, okay. But you can hear it and write it out, and write out all the parts?
Sure.
Nice.
Well, that's part of the training of being a musician,
Yes.
No, but he has perfect hearing.
I don't have perfect pitch.
No, you do.
I'm not saddled with
He has
that.
a thing that other people can't do.
That's
He does. He won't talk about it. Look at him.
It's not I don't have perfect pitch. I mean, there's people that like can walk into this room and go, this room is an A sharp. It's not a B flat, it's an A sharp. And or whatever, but like or your refrigerator is an F or something, like is humming an F. Here's what it is. If I've been playing music recently, which I haven't now for hours, and I heard your refrigerator, I could go, oh, that's in relation to the notes that I was just playing a little bit ago. That's your refrigerator is playing an F.
Yeah.
I could figure it out.
Yes.
Which is what we call relative pitch. Okay, so I have pretty well-developed relative pitch. So I don't have perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is just like, actually it's a hindrance to some people that have it, because when they hear something that's not in tune, it's painful to them.
Oh, it's
so
hard.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm good without that.
But you're able to listen to something and then go arrange it and have it sound like what you listened to.
Yes.
People can't do that. That's not a common thing.
Not everybody can do
You
that.
can study and do it, though.
Study and practice and practice and practice.
People that want to do it can study and do it. And yeah, it was I learned to do it from transcribing jazz solos, from listening to a Miles Davis. Well, I didn't transcribe much Miles Davis, but I did transcribe Clifford Brown. And so, like, I would listen to this Clifford Brown trumpet solo from a recording of 1954 or something, and I would go, oh, I love that solo. Let me write it out. And so I would write out all the notes so that I could learn to play it myself and also understand what he did. So once you do that enough, then you know, that becomes, I don't want to say easier, but, you know, you get better at it. And then you start doing that with saxophones, and then you start doing that with trombones, and then you understand how the piano works and the bass and the drums and everything. And yeah, so how all of that is supposed to fit together. You know, that's what arranging and orchestration is basically, you know, is understanding what everything sounds like and how it fits, how each instrument fits into the grand scheme of things.
And I think there's two parts to that. One, you're drawn to it enough that you enjoy doing that, and you love being immersed in it, so you will do it.
Right.
And then you do it so much that it starts to come more naturally and more easily to you because you get immersed in that sound and you're hearing it and you're doing it. Versus some people may have the ability but are not drawn to it. Others may be drawn to it but don't have the same level of ability. And I remember, like I said, I mean, you hear this all the time, but my limited experience in band was there were definitely horn players that could hear something on the radio and then come into practice and just start riffing and play it. And it would be like, oh, wow, he's playing that Michael Jackson song. For me, I could do it after a while, but it would take me forever. I mean, I would have to pull out every single note. I would have to, you know, experiment to find the note. It would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah. Like an example of that for me, I remember when I was a kid in the 70s, I hated Stevie Wonder because my brother listened to Stevie Wonder all the time. My brother Dale is like a huge Stevie Wonder fan, and now I am now too. But then I hated it, because that's all he would play. Yeah. He wouldn't listen to anything else, and so but then fast forward 30 years, 20, 30 years, and I'm playing in wedding bands, and we're playing I wish those days would come back once more, you know, and you're having to play those da 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 da, you know, da 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 da, and you're like, oh, I know this, because I heard it so much, and now I've studied music, and now I've studied my instrument. I understand all that is, so that was easy enough for me to just pick out and play, you know. So yeah, you can't do that if you don't want to.
Right.
You know, so there's got to be something inside of you that wants to do that, you know. And I was really lucky to have not just, you know, when you're in college, you're sort of learning all of this academically, and you don't really get to immerse yourself in applying it, you know, because that's basically what happens in college is you're just soaking up all of this information, and then hopefully you have somewhere that you can apply it. Yeah. And then, so I was really lucky to have some places where I was able to apply what I was learning and then actually get an understanding of it, you know, so that, and then when you go to create music, there's just all the more reason, you know, behind what you're doing. You just have a greater understanding of it. So, and then you start making choices of what you like and what you don't like. When you start to write something, you go, oh, okay. I used to experiment. Oh, okay. I'm gonna write it. I would take a certain time of week, like Saturday mornings. I used to teach on Saturdays and teach private trumpet students, and I would get there like an hour or two early, and I'm like, I'm gonna write tunes before I have to teach. Okay. So I would go, okay, I don't have any ideas for what I want to write. Let me just hit 3 notes on the piano in whatever order, even randomly, And then if I didn't like those 3 notes, I would keep 2 of them and go, okay, what other note do I want to go with this? And then I would go, okay, what do those 3 notes mean to me? What chord goes along with that? What rhythm should I choose to go with? What does, if I play these 3 notes, what do they say? What words do I hear? Even if I don't consider myself to be a great, lyricist or anything, but like generally there's some when you play music, there's some sort of or when you go to write music, there's some sort of inspiration that comes to you when you hear it. Something, it'll mean something to you.
Yes.
Whether it's good, bad, or anything in between. So and composing gives you that opportunity to say, okay, this is what it's going to be about, good or bad or what, and so it's so you have to. I end up usually a lot of things that when I start to write something, I'll either have some snippet of a melody that will occur to me, and a lot of times it'll happen repetitively, so I have to get it out so that it will stop. And then, or
it doesn't let go.
Or I'll go through that other process of trying to create something, trying to make something from scratch. But like, so I'll write something down, and then I'll find a way to develop it. I suppose that, like if you compared that to painting, okay, I had this idea for a flower. So now what is the context that the flower is in? What colors are involved with it? All of those are choices that you would make in music also. What is the context of this particular idea that I had? Is it the beginning of something? Is it the middle of something? Is it the end of something? And you don't always know. A lot of times when we hear something, we think, oh, that's the beginning of something. But no, that might actually be the like what you would call in pop music, that might be the hook. That might be the most important thing. So what you have to do is then build your, build your thing around it, and say, okay, I now I have to make this hook make sense. What does that mean? And
I had that experience lyrically recently. I looked up in the sky and saw something and had something come. And then as I walked around, like the rest kind of built around it for me, just in terms of words. And in the end, it was like, oh, that came together. But it was exactly that. Like it was just this one piece. It was just the topic that came.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you explained that, and it's really beautiful the way you describe it, because when you said I made a commitment I was going to write every Saturday morning, and that sounded almost forced, but it sounds like it's what you wanted to do. You wanted to have space and quiet and time for that inspiration to come, and to experiment and be inspired.
Well, and if I remember correctly, it was around when it was about 20 years ago, so I think it was around when I was 30-ish, and so I was going through, I was going through a period of wanting to really find how I was going to compose things. So I think I really needed to go. I'd already studied, lots of things, but I wanted to find what was the way I was going to do something. How was I going to express myself musically? So I needed to go through a period of just completely not judging what I wrote. I remember sometimes I would write funk tunes. I would write cha-chas. I wrote a tango one time. I was like, why did I write a tango? And then I wrote jazz songs. I wrote bossa novas. I wrote all kinds of stuff. And so I tried not to judge I wrote a reggae tune one time. I was like, I try not to judge anything that was coming out, because actually imposing those structures on it kind of was like, even more than maybe I should have at the time. I should have just thought of it all as melody and harmony, you know, instead of, oh, that sounds like a tango, you know. So, but I needed to go through a whole thing of discovering how I was going to write songs, you know, how I was going to write tunes, and that way, now when I get an idea for a tune, it seems like I've got more, not, I guess shortcuts is kind of the way to think of it. Like I've got, okay, here's what I would do.
You know.
Yeah, you know, here's the way I would develop this. And sometimes even, like I said, when I hear that one hook, I can almost feel the rest of the structure around it.
You have your approach.
And then it's that process of just like, what was it? Michelangelo would take away the stone from a sculpture. You know, you're not creating the sculpture. You're taking away the parts that aren't supposed to be there. Yeah. You're chipping away the parts that don't. Was it Michelangelo or was it no? Who did? Yeah, he did, David. Right. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, see, I'm good. You're on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So like.
That's a very good way to put it, though. I think about that about a lot of things that we do. That it's chipping away the parts that don't need to be there to get to what truly shines through, as opposed to what are you trying to put on or make.
Yeah, and so that was, and I still go back, and in fact just the other day I was sort of cleaning up and rearranging my office, and I came across some music that I'd written during that period, and I went, oh yeah, that. Okay, yeah, let me do something with that again, you know. So I'm still seeing things from that time that I was going, oh wow, that was pretty good. I remember that being, I still have the entire song like in my head from when I wrote it 20 years ago. So like, yeah, I need to revisit that. And then, so that's cool. But yeah, so yeah.
It's all good. It's all awesome. So, and it sounds to me like you love playing, you love arranging and teaching, and there are these things that you do around that enhance it, but that you just love to play the trumpet.
Yeah, it's almost a sickness. Yeah, it's real weird. I think trumpet players. I've said this for a long time. Trumpet players are kind of like unicorns. They more than a lot of instrumentalists, because it takes so much daily regimen to just to do it at all, that they're. And maybe I only think this way because I'm a trumpet player. I'm sure saxophone players would not feel the same way about trumpet players, or trombone players certainly wouldn't. But like, it just takes so much concentration, so much focus. It takes such physical control to play the trumpet that you better be pretty into it if you're going to even think about doing it. I've taught private students now for over 20 years, you know, and I don't know, I never really counted how many I taught, but like it's in the hundreds, I think, but like there's like 5 that still play. Yeah. You know, it's not something that you do lightly. You know, it's not something that you go, yeah, I think I'll do that. Yeah, no, I would like to do that every day.
I could pick it up and plunk around a little while and put it down and pick it up again.
It's absolutely a disease. You have to medicate every day. You know, like you have to apply some sort of topical treatment to it every day. I have to maintain this disease every day, you know. So, but actually, that's probably one of the things that keeps me involved in as involved in music as I am because I do have to do that every day. And it's not just because I'm compelled to do it. The instrument, it just requires that. You have to play it every day. You know, the famous quote from Doc Severinsen, if we all remember Doc Severinsen from the Johnny Carson show, still alive and still playing trumpet in his 90s.
Nice.
He would say, if I take one day off, I notice. If I take 2 days off, the band notices. If I take 3 days off, everybody notices.
Wow.
So and he still, I've heard interviews with him, like, he still plays every day. He still plays every day.
You should invite him out to play.
Oh. I met him once in the 80s, but like, that was actually one of the questions I had when I came to LA. I wanted to find a teacher that was down here, and so I asked I was living in the Bay Area, and I asked the guy at the repair shop. His name is Dick Ackright. He had a repair shop in Oakland called Best Instrument Repair. I think the shop is still there, but I think Dick is retired. But at the time, Dick was making trumpets for Doc Severinsen. This is 88, 89, and Doc played every one of them. He would fly up to Oakland and play every trumpet and test them out, and Dick was making them by hand, and so I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'd love to be here when he's here. And so finally one day when I was there having Dick work on my trumpet, I said, hey, does Doc teach? I'm going to L.A.
Ah.
And he goes, no, he's too busy for that. Here, call this guy. And I won't say who that is, but I didn't get along with that guy.
Okay.
He was a great trumpet player, but I didn't get along with him. Not as a teacher. You don't get along with everybody. Teachers are...
No.
And not everybody's a teacher either. My dad was not a teacher. He did not teach me. He didn't want to teach.
I mean, there's that old thing about those who can do and those who can't teach, but I don't think that's absolutely true, but I definitely think there are those who do and do well but are not drawn to teaching it and not good at teaching it.
Well, I think when you're in a major metropolitan area like Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or San Francisco, or you have people that do both. You have people that are great players and are great teachers. I think I'm generalizing here and I'm going to get in trouble, but I think once you get farther away from the metropolitan areas, you have people that just teach. And so I never wanted to be one or the other. I didn't want to be just somebody who only taught. And because I remember at one point I had like 30 students a week, private students. So I was teaching half hours, and hour lessons, 30 students a week, and I was going nuts.
That's a lot.
And I decided, I don't think I want to do that. That was one thing that went on my list. Okay, I don't want to teach that much. Also, you have to make a choice. Hey, I'm teaching that much. I can't do these gigs now. Right. So now I can't play with this band that I want to play with because I have a commitment to this teaching schedule.
Yes.
So I want to be performing music, So I've got it. So I had to, you make some sacrifices. You adjust. You go, okay, I'm not going to take that many,
So you balance it there.
And you feel better about both, I think, when you're doing that. At least I do. I feel good when I have, and they don't even have to be the greatest students. As long as they want to be there, and that's fine. That's fine. And if they're engaged and listening to what I say, that's great.
Yeah.
And
maybe part of the time enjoying what they're doing.
I don't think that and most of the people that I teach are kids. So I don't think that a kid can even make that assessment yet. I think they know what they think is fun, but I think it comes later in life where they go, man, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hard for a kid to have that appreciation for how valuable that was.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, their parents are constantly having to tell them, do you know how amazing this is, what you're doing? You know, you're going to miss this when you get out into the world, you know.
Yeah.
So
They're just like, I just do it, and I either like it or I don't like it.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm lucky to be able to do all of it. Really lucky to be able to do all of that stuff and play with musicians that want to play on a really high level.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
That have high standards.
Yeah. You have a beautiful group, several beautiful groups that you play with.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Very lucky. Very lucky.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your art with us and talking about it. And I feel like we talked just kind of topically, and then every now and then you would dive really deep into what the experience is like. And that is exactly, I think, what people are interested in hearing, what
great.
that experience is like and how it connects for them or someone that they care about. What else would you like to share?
Nothing. That's
okay.
it.
And then
No.
Then rattle off every place
All the
and
place
time
where I'm
that
playing.
you're doing.
Okay, let's see. I've been now at Perch for almost in January. It'll be 6 years. I've been at Perch
You posted
every
a
Tuesday.
picture of the, is it ice
Pershing
that was
Square,
down below
yeah.
Pershing Square there? And I was like, oh, I want to go now.
You know,
Mention it's the 8th most Instagrammed restaurant
it's
in
like
the
one of the top 10 most Instagram restaurants in.
High barrier to entry?
in America.
Huh?
Like,
Yeah.
does it cost a lot to go there?
It's a fairly nice restaurant.
It's fair.
It's like a $3 sign restaurant.
Yeah. You would. Yeah.
You have a nice steak.
But I
Yeah.
don't have to be on somebody's
The
list.
food's very good.
just
It's
make
very
reservation.
consistent. No,
Okay.
you should probably make a reservation. Perchla.com is their website.
Gotta be okay with elevators.
Yeah, you got to be okay with elevators.
Thank you, Aaron.
And
Good
believe
tip.
it or not, they have a 13th floor in that building. So yeah,
You
weird.
gotta be okay with lots of
You got to be okay with tons of things. With helicopters flying while you're eating, and while I'm singing
Oh,
during bass solos, they have helicopters flying around. Great,
That's
Birds,
awesome.
Orchestra.
Monkestra is, let's see, what's the next thing the Monkestra is doing is, I want to say in February, we're doing a concert at Soka University, which is down in San Leandro. Aliso Viejo is where Soka
You're thinking
University.
Bay Area.
That's-
San Leandro.
Yeah, I know. I get all, there's so many weird names in California that I don't know how to say, and I can't remember where they are.
Come on.
but
Bad Catholic.
Aliso Viejo is where Soka is, Soka, Soka University. And so the Monkestra will be there, John Beasley's Monkestra. You can go to John Beasley's website. I think it's either johnbeasleymusic.com or johnbeasley.com.
It's also on your website.
It's also on my website. I do keep links to my gigs. BrianSwartz.com. BrianSwartz, not SCH or SH or anything like none of that stuff. BrianSwartz.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I don't remember my Twitter name. I think it's just Brian Swartz Jazz or something like that, or Brian Swartz. I don't remember. I know my Instagram is Brian_Swartz. Let's see.
I will spell out all of this stuff in
All
the
of
notes.
this, yeah.
I'll put it
So-
all.
And Boingo's got a show on December 30th at the Canyon up in Santa Clarita, Valencia, essentially.
Those are fun shows.
And those are real fun shows. This is going to be fun. And then we've got things coming up in, like I said, March and May. And, So I'm going to be up in the Bay Area with Azar at the end of January. We're playing a couple of gigs that I have on my website also. One of them is at Yoshi's in Oakland. So anyway, that's a lot of what's going on, I think. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's where people can find you, follow you, and find out where you're playing whenever they listen to this and want to check it out.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Oh,
for
thank
being
you for
here.
having me. I really
And
appreciate it.
thank you, Laura, for filling in the details.
And keeping
I'm
me.
a backseat driver podcaster.
keeping me straight. Keep me on the straight and narrow.
Okay.
All right.
Keep playing.
All right. We'll do that.
Thanks.